Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Engineers Australia, I'm delighted to welcome you all to the Engineer Your Dream Career webinar. My name is Alicia Prince, and I'm the General Manager of the Victorian Division of Engineers Australia. I'm also a chartered civil engineer with a background in the water industry. Today, I join you from the land of the Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nations. Engineers Australia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. I pay my respects to their cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. So I've been on staff at Engineers Australia for the past 3 years, but prior to that, I've been an Engineers Australia member now totaling around about 23 years, which is since I was at university. Engineers Australia events over the years have really delivered great value to me, and the Engineers Australia network has been a wonderful base of support. It's a privilege for me today to open today's webinar, which has been put together especially for Victorian University students and recent graduates, and will be a great opportunity for you to hear from leading industry professionals as they share key insights on how to get your career off to the right start. The program today includes 2 panel discussions with speakers sharing their thoughts on how you can achieve early career success, successfully engage with employers, and build a strong professional identity. I do hope that in the not too distant future, we can welcome you all to Engineers Australia in person, but for now, please enjoy today's event. I'd like to hand over to Professor Sam Fredermeni, Professor of Structural Engineering at Victorian University, to kick off today's event. Over to you. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you, Alicia, for that introduction. Most of you know who I am. I head engineering at Victoria University. Can you go back a slide? Sorry, Claire. Just back a slide. We missed the thank you. We've done this on purpose. There's a big list here. All these people in some way have been involved in this seminar today, the 2-hour workshop, seminar, what you want to call it. And rather than leaving it at the end, we put this thank you slide in right now. Okay, so you're going to come across majority of these people in either panel 1 or 2. They've volunteered their time for today, which is awesome for us at Victoria University. Everybody at Engineers Australia and Victorian University reps. This is something different. Next slide, thanks. This is something different for you, apart from hearing us, the technical side of engineering and learning about engineering and all the different disciplines. I know that we probably don't do enough in this regard about your early career and getting a job. And this seminar is all important. We'll have over 100 participants today, which is awesome, especially that it's online. So you'll notice that we've got, apart from our welcome, we've got panel 1, which I will chair on early career advice with my panel of 5. We'll have a coffee break for you to stretch your legs and so forth at around 2. So I'll finish somewhere around 2. Panel 2 will start at 2:10 and that'll finish around 3 o'clock, and then a conclusion at 3:05. All right, be virtual, it's probably better. That at certain stages you can get up and have a coffee when you like. So hopefully you'll enjoy the session. So we'll move on to the next slide. Thank you. Okay, most of you know about Victoria Uni, but I always like to let you know where the Origins of Victoria Uni is. And it's building, you'll notice that there's a building there. It's Building D, where we reside currently for all those students. And it was Figrette Technical College. It turned into Figrette Institute of Technology. And that's when we first started offering undergrad degrees. Okay. So for me, Victoria University, engineering at Victoria University, it's the center of the universe. All right. Figrette Institute, all the way to Victoria Uni. You'll notice at the bottom here, in the middle, 2022, we're hoping to commence a Master of Engineering in Civil. So we're going into that postgrad space. We're already in that postgrad space with telecommunications and electrical power streams. So we're expanding. Just a couple of things. There's heaps of student surveys out there, but the graduate outcome surveys and quilt surveys are the most important in Australia. And they're good for us so that we know where we're heading, where we're going. There's a lot of indicators, but we've picked out, the ones that we know we're shining. We're number 1 in Victoria over 7 or 8 universities in overall quality of education and engineering at the undergrad level. We're in the top 2% of universities worldwide. We're number 1 in Australia for employability. Now, these surveys are student-focused. Students actually vote. So that's an awesome result. It doesn't end there. Okay, Victoria University is not a university of technology. It's also a research university. And we are at above world standard for electrical and electronic engineering research, and well above, and above world standard for engineering overall. All right, so lots of things are happening. As I said to the staff this morning, of our 20 engineering staff, 19 have got PhDs. 15 years ago, of our 25 engineering staff, only 11 had PhDs. So you can tell that the academic who teaches you is more rounded, not only in the technical side of teaching, but also research. And that research teaching nexus goes together. Right, next slide. Okay, a lot of our students have gone on to bigger and better things. I won't read through this slide, just to say that Andrea, Jake, Lawrence, and Sarah, and Sisfa, are a few of our recent graduates who have gone on not only to do really well, but have achieved many things, including awards. Next slide, please. Students, you're in the degree, so I suppose you're, what you want to know is that there's a lot of work out there. Well, the whole point of this slide is just to let you know that there is a hell of a lot of work going on in Australia, but more specifically Victoria, especially in the infrastructure area. All right, and the Victorian all governments are supporting this infrastructure growth. So all I can see for engineers, for us, is a lot of work in the next decade or so. And you'll probably hear that as we go. Okay, next slide. Right, this is the fun part, the first panel. And I've got the fun part of directing the questions, but not answering them myself. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to go one by one, and we'll go by the slides, and for each panel member to introduce themselves. So first of all, I've got Nicole Brown. She's a structural engineer at ACOM. So Nicole, if you can introduce yourself and just briefly mention the role that you're currently in. Thank you.
Sure thing. Good afternoon, everyone. As I was introduced, my name is Nicole, and I currently work as a structural engineer at AECOM. I graduated back in 2016, so have been in the industry for about 5 years and worked across 2 different companies within those 5 years. I am also a really strong volunteer, or big volunteer, in a few different groups. So I've been involved with Engineers Australia since being a student, and next year I'll be the chair of Young Engineers Australia National Committee, which I'm really excited about. I'm also the Australian delegate on the International Young Engineers Group, and looking forward to sharing some of my, I guess, experiences and advice from being in the early stage of my career with you today.
Thank you, Nicole. Next is Xavier Trager on the slide. Xavier.
Thank you, Sam, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so my name is Xavier Trager. I'm the Student and Graduate Engagement Manager for Victoria at Engineers Australia. And my role primarily consists of creating awareness on university campuses across Victoria, creating awareness of who Engineers Australia is, what we do, and how we can support students to graduate engineers. So express the importance for student engineers to build these what we call soft skills, maybe start building their networks, because we do know it's very important when reaching the job market to have a strong and meaningful network. So Engineers Australia has those resources for our students, helping them build those technical skills, but also those industry connections and professional networks. So we have countless ways of helping you students in preparing yourself for the employment market. It's just a question of you being aware of all these resources. So that is my role, trying to develop initiatives that will encourage students to engage with us. So it's great for me to get feedback also from employers, understand what skills, what kind of attributes they're looking for that next generation of engineers. But in engaging with you students, it's also important for me to relay to employers what are the kind of companies you want to work for, what are the sectors you're passionate about, what are the values that are important for you in an employer, because employers are definitely, it's a two-way street. You have your dream companies maybe, but employers have their dream graduates. So they want to attract the best and the brightest. Best and the brightest are often student members of Engineers Australia, and they want to know how to attract you. So that's in short my role at Engineers Australia. Hopefully give you a lot of inspiration on what you can achieve with your degree, high quality degree delivered by Victoria University. So today's a great opportunity for you. You're going to hear from lots of great engineers. And I look forward to speaking with you all very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. Xavier, I think some of the students probably already know you from your presence at VU from time to time. So anyway, we'll keep going. So next on the screen is Amy Lesler, and she's an engineering manager at LXRP. Have a think about that, and I'm sure Amy will tell you what that stands for. Thanks, Amy.
Yes, I will do. There's nothing that we like more in rail than acronyms. LXRP is the Level Crossing Removal Program. So I work for Metro, for MTM, and I'm the engineering manager for the level crossing removals. So what that actually means is that my team look at the design assurance for all the level crossing removals which are taking place. And we do a bit of a sanity check, make sure it's safe, make sure it meets the standards, and make sure it's okay to be put onto the live network. So how did I get here? The history, joined rail in 2007 in the UK as a graduate, and then through various different roles ended up moving to Australia, and was mainly in building trains up until 2020 when I joined the level crossing program. I started learning a little bit about infrastructure. So I used my engineering theory base to change from the train to the infrastructure. But yeah, since graduating, I've always been heavily involved in institutions like Engineers Australia. Obviously, as in the UK, they weren't very present there because that wasn't Australia. Logic. But I was involved with the IMechE, which is a Mechanical Engineering Institute, because that was my degree was in. And once I moved to Australia, I did keep up with both IMechE and Engineers Australia, but once I moved to Melbourne in 2016, my IMechE involvement dropped off quite heavily, and now I'm very much involved in Engineers Australia and sit on the Victorian Division Committee. And the network that's been provided in the last few years since moving to Melbourne has just been fantastic, and I'm very grateful to be here today to support the institution as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And you'll notice in the brackets, it shouldn't be bracketed, it should be highlighted bigger. She's the reigning Young Engineer of the Year, Victoria. Correct? I think I'm correct there, Amy. So well done. And I know you have to hand over the reins soon.
Yes, in a couple of weeks I get to hand it over.
Okay, good. But I know you're still doing a lot of work with EA, so okay, thank you. Next on the list is Oscar Casasayas. He's a project officer for the Office of Projects Victoria. So Oscar.
G'day Sam, how you going? Hi all. So I'm a project officer, Office of Projects Victoria. It's a state government infrastructure delivery office within Department of Treasury and Finance. So we've got our teams headed up by the Victorian Chief Engineer. So chief sort of role for engineering in government. We're in the engineering and innovation team. So big on all things engineering innovation, background in construction, commercial construction, and project management. Yeah, keen to be part of the discussion today.
Thank you, Oscar. Last but not least is Figrette Alpogen, and he's maintenance services and control system team leader with GWW. There's your acronym. Welcome, Figrette.
Thank you, Sam. Not sure if you know, Sam, but I'm also a VU alumni who graduated as an electrical engineer back in 2002. Many moons since I graduated. And I remember Dr. John Klond, who used to be my favourite, still in Building D. So shout out to him if he's listening or if he's part of the team. Bit of history on me. So if you're living in the West, no doubt you've had something to do with GWW, or formerly City West Water. So my role as a maintenance and services control systems team leader is to manage all the sewage treatment plants. Being an electrical engineer, I manage a team of electricians and fitters and a whole heap of engineers, and we service all of the western suburbs, all out of now Macedon, their treatment plants, their water treatment plants, and also all the M&E assets. So lots involved, lots of opportunities out there, and a lot of growth in the West. So really looking forward to presenting today.
Thank you very much. Yeah, before we move on, just notice everybody who's online that we've covered all our bases. Victoria Uni, we've got civil engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and architectural engineering with the structures flavour. So our panelists actually sit in one of those four, which is awesome. You know, if you're wondering where you could get a job or where you work, I think nothing about any is traditional. Everybody seems to be working in a different sub-industry, if you like, or the same industry, multi-industry. Okay. Is there another slide, or I can move on? I can't remember. That's it. All right. Well, everybody, it's time for the questions, and I suppose there's a few questions that I'll ask, and hopefully those questions will answer a lot of your a lot of your thoughts. You know, a lot of the questions you want to ask. And I'll ask the first one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask various panelists, and everybody else could join in if they like. I'll go straight to the first question, and it's really about the importance of developing enterprise skills. All right. And I'm looking on my screen at Nicole. Nicole, I'm wondering if you can start this question off. Can you just talk us through the importance of developing enterprise skills, please?
Yeah, sure, Sam. So I guess firstly, for myself, when I think about what enterprise skills mean, to me, they're the skills of communication, of teamwork, of problem solving, of how you communicate and how you work to solve the problem, basically, and how they all interlink together. So to me, to be a successful engineer, you need to have strong enterprise skills. It's not just being able to know the technical work that you're doing, but it's also just as important to be able to communicate and talk through the problem or talk through the solution with the people that you're working with. As a structural engineer, on a daily basis, we're speaking to and working together with mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, architects, builders, contractors, a whole group of people that may not necessarily have the technical knowledge in the certain space that I work in the same way that I'm not going to know the technical from a mechanical or electrical engineer. So it is so important to be successful, to be able to communicate in a way that others can understand, and vice versa. So the development of these enterprise skills, to me, is critical to being a successful engineer. And I had the opportunity to learn those at university, but more so learning through volunteer work and actually getting involved with groups such as Engineers Australia to provide an opportunity to further develop and challenge these skills.
I'm glad to hear, Nicole, there that you've actually developed some of those skills at uni. I probably think we don't do enough, right, at uni. Maybe we can't in the space we have. We tend to call it generic skills. So I'm pleased to hear that we call it enterprise skills. It sort of sounds better, sounds more encompassing. Amy, are you able to contribute to our conversation here about enterprise skills?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, very much echo what Nicole was saying about its communication skills, because you can have the best ideas, but if you're not able to communicate those out, then it's not going to get across, and you're not going to be able to influence those within the enterprise of what needs to happen from an engineering perspective. So looking at your basics such as report writing and presentation skills, when I was very fortunate, the graduate program that I had did a lot of discipline on presentation skills and how to chunk up a presentation and to communicate those ideas effectively. So now when I have graduates come into my teams, I always sit down and try and work through those skill sets, because if you can't write a good report and if you can't present in an effective manner, then the best ideas will get left to the side. So I think it's really crucial as new engineers to really focus on how you form a report, so the introduction, the body, the conclusion, and also how you give succinct messaging through presentation skills and chunk up that message, tell the story, make sure you've got some key messages come across. And the trainer that told us, and bear in mind this is going back a number of years, I still remember she was saying, tell them again, and tell them what you've told them. And that still sticks with me now when I'm putting a presentation together.
Excellent. I'm not sure whether the others, either Oscar or Figrette, it looks like we'll have time answering questions and that.
Yeah, happy to jump in there, Sam. I think this is a really important topic and well articulated so far in terms of how important it is. It's something that, as we all know, engineering is multidisciplinary. You're not just dealing with engineers, you're dealing with often, all of the other stakeholders involved in the project or the particular presentation that you're trying to deliver. And I think, like we've said, you could have the greatest idea and not being able to present it. Sometimes we say in our office, how you present it, sometimes even more important than the technical details, which, staying in a room full of engineers is probably not the most popular opinion, but I work with a team of engineers in our office, and I didn't have an engineering background, and have been able to sort of work with them and understand that the work that they're doing. And I think because they do communicate it well, and I think that's really important, particularly if we're working with multidisciplinary environments, different project stakeholders with different maturities, and communicating these ideas so everyone's on the same page.
I'd also like to add too, Sam, that the enterprise skills allows you to vet your idea with other engineers and to actually discuss the possible outcomes, the result, and also to receive feedback, which I think is really important as an engineer. So, yeah, really important to develop those enterprise skills really early on in your career.
Actually, it's good that we've nearly finished off with you. Great. And you've been was it VUT when you finished?
It was VUT.
Okay.
Yep.
Did you think that at the time you had enough of those skills? Be honest. It's all good.
No, it's a tough one. I suppose the world and the engineering area look completely different than it does now, Sam, to be honest. They were really after the technical expertise at the time. Massive focus around telecommunications when I graduated. So you had your Telstras and the Ericssons and the Nokias, all had that thirst for young engineers at the time. And the industry's changed as we've moved forward. So I think now, especially with remote learning and online development and interviews and things like that, those enterprise skills really highlight an individual.
I can tell you, it's not really diverting, but Victoria University is up for accreditation with Engineers Australia in November. the competencies that we need to strive for actually now include a hell of a lot of enterprise skills or generic skills. The technical stuff's still there, but there's a dramatic shift in focus. I've got to say, having teaching everybody that's been online, is online today, when I finished my degree back in 1988, it was the first year that a word processor came out. So my first 3 years were written assignments. Presentations were on an overhead projector with transparencies. If I look back at what I did, different world, different person, I was not prepared to do any of those. The other thing I like was the fact that we talked about a body of report, and I think everybody really needs to understand this. Can't remember if it was Amy. An introduction, the body, conclusion. It's pretty much like an essay. And that's all it is, but probably more succinct. So it's amazing how it all rings true and it all makes sense when we're working. Anyway, that's good. I'll move on to the next one. So stay online, Figrette, because I'm going to ask you this question. And everybody's probably waiting for this. What is the importance in securing your first job?
Good one, Sam. I think to be honest with yourself, honest with your expectations, honest with your application. You know, I've interviewed a lot of graduates over the years, part of a graduate program, and it's about setting clear expectations for both yourself and both for the employer as well. The other thing I'd like to add is don't be afraid when you're going for your first job to take on like a 6 month secondment or a small short-term opportunity. I tend to find, especially in the water industry, is that 6 month position turns into a 6-year opportunity for that individual. I can see Amy's having a bit of a giggle. I'm guessing it's the same in most areas. You know, like when we find a really good individual or a really good engineer, managers have a knack for finding additional, I suppose, resources to be able to fund that individual for a little bit longer than expected. So, yeah, don't be afraid to get your foot in the door by taking on that, you know, short-term role. It also gives you a lot of exposure to different opportunities as well. So it might not be in the area of this area of discipline, like you might be taking on another role in, you know, another area, but it's always an opportunity to learn and grow.
Thank you. I like the fact that, you know, foot in the door, 6 months, if it's a small secondment, take it on because it could end up being the job you want or the job you've strived for and so forth. Who have we got here? Let's see. Oscar.
Yeah, I'd add to that and say, you know, around, you know, just taking opportunities. Often it's the small volunteering opportunities, the competitions, the little things that come up, you know, events like this, EA events that you want to be involved in, which, you know, you meet lots of people and it moves from one thing to the next, and, you know, you sort of become more involved in the industry while you still might not have your first job. And it's that case of how can you get industry experience without having industry experience? Well, it's these kind of events and those kind of you know, interactions on the periphery of having your job that I think, you know, set you up for being a good candidate.
Now I've got a take on. I've got notes here. I won't tell you who prepared it, but Amy, apparently your first job was as a fire safety engineer. Is that true?
Well, my postgraduate scheme, yes, I was. I've had a bit of a weird career, and that's one thing I was going to say. Like, don't plan your career, because you just take the opportunities when they come up. Because yeah, I started as a graduate in maintenance, so helping to fix trains. Then I moved into material. I wanted to go into the design, so after my grad scheme, I went into materials and fire engineering, because what makes a train is the materials you use is very heavily determined by the stringent fire requirements. So then I got really interested in fire because it's thermodynamics and heat And it's just, yeah, it's really interesting. So fluid flow and thermodynamics is basically what fire is. And a bit of a pyromaniac when I was younger, and it seems like a really fun topic to study. So I did that for a number of years, and then that moved me into safety and assurance, and here I am now. But yeah, it was a very interesting, it wasn't something that I went into, it's something that I followed into because, you know, Figrette said, you take the opportunities that come along and you work with them, and a 6-month opportunity can turn into a 6-year opportunity. I got into MTM on a 12-month contract, and nearly 4 years later, I'm still here. So don't be afraid to just take those shorter stints, get the experience, because, you know, everyone says you need experience to get experience. If it's just a 6-month role, or if it's a volunteering opportunity, as Oscar was saying, that's where you can build up your enterprise skill set, which will help you get the next role. So, and it will also build your network. The roles that I've taken, the opportunities that came along, typically came along from my network outside of my direct role. It was usually through my volunteering network that someone said, oh, we've got this job which we think you'd be suitable for. Do you want to come along? So that really have that broad network from volunteering. The one thing I will say to all young engineers is do not jump into project management too soon, because you cannot build up you can always go from technical to project management. It's very hard to go from project management back to technical. So get your really strong grounding in technical, do as much technical work as you can for the first 4 or 5 years, and then you can go into the project management side of things, because it's very easy to go one way, it's very hard to go the other way. Yeah, so take those 6-month technical opportunities. If it's just 2 or 3 of them, even, at least you've got a broad skill set that you've built up.
Great. Okay, I've got questions now. This is good. So I'm not sure who could answer that. Maybe because we went on about the 6 months position. Justin has asked, what advice would you give a final year student who lacks experience? Anyone want to answer that? Figrette, maybe?
Yeah, look, I suppose you know, get onto some I suppose some areas where engineers are. So LinkedIn is a great example. Engineers Australia is a great example, and reach out and network as much as you can. If there's somebody in the industry, you know, send them an email, see if you can catch up for a coffee, or, you know, reach out to them and say, hey, look, you know, I'm looking for maybe a placement opportunity or some interview opportunities to do some research or do some work. So just reach out and network as much as possible. You know, everyone's got time to answer an email or receive a phone call. So just reach out to everyone you can. Don't be shy. Everyone's got a busy life and a busy lifestyle, but reach out as much as you can, and I'm sure it'll pay dividends in the long run.
Thanks.
I can just contribute to that, Sam, as well. Just when it comes to
thanks, Dave.
A student, whether a final year student or any year student who lacks experience, there are multiple ways of, I guess, sort of replicating the environment of a professional engineer, and that's through extracurricular activities. So volunteering, participating in competitions. I think Oscar was mentioning, we've developed case competitions for the past 2 years at Engineers Australia, where students will be developing skills that are essential, generic enterprise skills, things like time management, teamwork, planning. These are clearly on the top of the list of graduate employers, and we see that in surveys. So extracurricular activities, I think, are really important for students, and just as Figrette mentioned, obviously your network. So attend as many events as you can, in person or online through LinkedIn. There are multiple ways, but obviously try to choose quality over quantity, and make those meaningful connections. But there are multiple ways to gain experience, even if it's not the traditional way.
Xavier, a question came through. Any tips for networking, meeting industry people? While events are all online. I suppose you sort of answered it. So it's any tips for networking / meeting industry people while events are all online? So in the current climate, I suppose they're saying.
Well, it's as I was just saying, choosing quality over quantity. Try to be as relevant as possible. So when you're reaching out to somebody directly, somebody you may not know, try to put a bit of context into it. So let's say, Amy, it was great to see you at the Dream Your Engineer Career event with Victoria University. I loved your comments on this, that, etc. I find you're a noteworthy person. I'd like to learn more from you. Just try to put context into when you're reaching out to these people. It's much more difficult being online, but we'll soon be back in person. So yeah, just try to make a personalized approach to somebody when you're networking, and not just those generic emails, I guess. Hi, Xavier, I'd like to have you in my network. Things like that.
Yep.
I'll definitely second that one, because there's LinkedIn being so accessible, you do get a lot of requests, and the context really does help to say, I saw you speak at this event, or we were both at that event, we have a similar interest, are you able to connect, or ask a question, start the conversation. Because just saying, hi, I'm a graduate, that's fantastic, but there are 100 other people saying, hi, I'm a graduate. So you've got to give some context, start that conversation, and open it to further discussion. Because when it's online, it is quite hard, and I do feel for the fact that you can't get out there and meet people face to face and look them in the eye and shake their hands. The other thing, as Figrette was saying, is just get the experience and reach out to people and find out what internship opportunities there are, either while you're at university, between university years. I actually did 2 placements while I was at university, and that helped me to get my graduate scheme. But even if it's post-university, if you've graduated, there's still internship opportunities. People are always interested in free labor. So just reach out to them and say, can we do 3 months of 2 or 3 days a week, just so that I can get some experience? And then you start to build that network, and then you can meet people in the office and then start reaching out to them through LinkedIn.
Okay. I'll move on. Thank you, Amy. Now, Nicole, I haven't left you out, but I've seen a question here that you might be able to answer. It's from Paris. What kind of software knowledge, knowledge employers, look in civil engineering graduates?
Yeah, it's a great question. And for myself, when I started, I had I guess a bit of an unconventional start to my career, where I got a cadetship with an engineering company straight out of high school. So I was quite fortunate to actually be at the same company for my entire university career, and a guaranteed job when I graduated. But I'll say, even having been in the company for 6 years, the software that I needed to know, or the software that I was using, changed. So when you started a new company, and I'm not sure if the other panelists will agree, but each company does things differently. And depending on where you go, depending on what role you take on, a civil engineering graduate can work in water, they can work in urban development, they can work in infrastructure, they can work in rail, they can work in, you have the opportunity to work in so many different areas that it will be dependent on the company. So myself, as a structural engineer, on a daily basis, I use RAPT for concrete design, RAM for structural two-way design of slabs. I'm in Space Gas if I'm designing steel, constantly in Excel and Structural Toolkit, which is a fancy Excel. But when I graduated from uni, I knew none of them. I never used any of those programs while I was at university. So for me, I actually learned all of that at the company when I had graduated. So I'd say as a baseline, having an appreciation for just how software programs are put together. I know when I was at uni, I used MATLAB and I hated it, and have never used it since. So that was definitely a program that I didn't use in my career. I haven't used in my career, but just understanding how to learn a new program and the basics of Excel, you can never go past knowing how to make a good spreadsheet. So for me, I think that probably would be the basis, but it will depend on the company that you join to what programs you'll need to use.
Yeah, Nicole, I'm glad to hear all that. And as the head of engineering, always scratch my head as to what software we should be using. And there's really no answer to it. There's so much out there. But the good thing is you've talked about Excel, and I've taught the virtues of Excel. It's more powerful than you think. Yep, a lot of civil engineers use space gas. I used plain gas 30 years ago. Space didn't come out yet. And I still use space gas in plane, two-dimensional plane. So yeah, it's good to hear that. And I think maybe that, you know, some of the students would be a bit pensive about getting out there. You won't know everything, all right? But you know, you will learn, but you just have to have the tools to understand that you need to learn. I think that's what I'm getting.
Yeah. Sam, if I can add,
yes.
Back when I graduated was our diary. Now it's our calendar. I suppose every professional in the room has probably got a calendar full of appointments and meetings. So I suppose if there's a tool that you should learn to manage early on, is to manage your calendar. I think it's one that you know, we all appreciate, and if you know how to use your calendar to, you know, schedule time or to check if someone's busy, it goes a long way.
Excellent. I'm looking at, there's a lot of questions about networking. I think we've really answered it. You know, Reginald, what is your advice would you give to try and differentiate yourself while you're trying to network or apply for internships? I think we answered that, getting a bit more personal. You know, I met you online somewhere at a function or what have you, or I met you through Sam at university or whatever, or through Xavier or whatever it is. And I was interested in your work, Figrette, at City West. You know, I didn't know an electrical engineer should work there or something like that, you know. I don't know.
Sam,
I think
I would add just very quickly, just to differentiate yourself, be authentic for sure. Just know who you are, what your value is, and be authentic. That's how you'll differentiate yourself. So show you know what your worth is, you know who you are, you know how you want to portray yourself to somebody. Well, be authentic. That way you'll for sure differentiate yourself. Sorry, Nicole.
yeah, I would
Nicole was going to say something.
sorry,
Yep.
apologies. I would add further to that. When you reach out to people that I guess have quite a large network, and I know Amy would be in a similar position, but you do get messages on a regular basis, and it's sometimes I get a message because I think someone just would like to be connected and not necessarily be connected with you. So it's also about making sure you reach out to people that you do actually want to connect with, not just, I heard you speak, it sounded good, I think you'd be a good person that I should know, rather than, okay, what is it that I actually said that you connected with? So it's just adding that extra level. And I know, like, from a personal standpoint, I don't accept anyone on LinkedIn anymore unless they send me a message or I know who they are. And that's just a general rule that I personally have. So yeah, definitely personalize the message and make sure you're reaching out to people that you actually want to connect with, and not just because you think they would be good to know.
Okay, excellent. Now, I think we should move on. I've just looked at the time. I'm going to ask Oscar this question. Oscar, if you can talk through your personal early career journey, and in particular, the challenge you found. So,
yep, no worries. So I think, like I said before, you can't get experience without experience, and this was really the case for me and plenty of others when I was studying. So I think, like I said, competitions in that sense brought like minds together and brought, you know, motivated people who wanted to get that experience and build those enterprise skills, as Xavier was talking about before, in a group, in a sort of format centered around a problem. So for me, that was a really, you know, fantastic way to actually, you know, get experience working in with some pretty exciting projects. We, you know, had particular competitions in the university I was in, but also multi sort of collaborative projects where it was different universities all working together. Doesn't have to be universities in Victoria or Australia. It can be internationally. And looking for these opportunities and getting together and just signing up and seeing what happens. It might not be, perfectly aligned with where you think you're going to end up, but maybe that's a great outcome that you can build skills in a different area, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot from it. So in terms of pathway, I think that was a great one for me to work with some others. We undertook a competition in China and were able to go to China and get all the universities together to fund us to go and present at a big event, and presented a competition. And from there, there's plenty of people interested in the event, and you get all these opportunities from that. So and you meet lots of great people along the way. So I'd say that it's these kinds of things that it's not necessarily applying for a job, but it's building all of those skills so you're ready to go when the time is right. So yeah, I'd say that's probably a really good one if you're in university to look out for these. It might be a volunteering position, it might be a competition, it might be a hackathon. There's all different things out there that people run.
Yep. No, that's great. I'm hearing. I thought about it before. You're talking about volunteering or doing something extra. Everybody should know that all the panelists are involved in some way or another through Engineers Australia or elsewhere. So if you're talking about networks, yeah, the panelists are, they obviously also do it because they want to put back into our industry. And whatever happens, but you'll notice that a lot of it is volunteering. Am I right or wrong? Nobody gets paid for their Engineers Australia or similar stuff. Everybody's volunteered their time today. And in a way, that's how you build. Am I correct? That's how you build your network, how you build on your career. All right.
Sam, on that one thing I will say is that all of the soft skills that I learned for my next jobs, I learned through volunteering roles. So when I was doing work with the Army Key, I was managing a budget for the young members, so that when it came to a role that I had to manage a budget, I knew how to do that. I was chairing meetings for people across the country. That's when it came into actually chairing meetings across the country in my actual job. I was very proficient at that because I've been doing it for so long in my volunteer capability. So yes, it's very much about giving back to the network, but you develop so many soft skills through your volunteering activities. That means that you actually have that experience for your next roles. So when it comes to how do you differentiate yourself from the pack, or how do you get experience without having experience, volunteering is a perfect way to do that. And it's been a real valuable tool for myself.
That's great to hear. That's great. As we're going through this, and I'm mindful of the time, we have a lot of international students, I think, in every university in Australia. And there's a question from Dinser here. I'm not sure, Xavier, you might answer this. They're talking about job ads on Seek, and one of the criteria is Australian citizenship or PR. And then the last part of the question is, but for fresh graduates with no citizenship or PR, how this obstacle can be overcome? Tough question to put to you, say.
It is a very, very tough one, and it's I do feel for those international students who don't have the permanent residency status or citizenship to apply. There are many employers out there who require that, and it's just a question of what international students need to certainly not give up. They have additional hurdles than, I guess, graduates who have all working rights. We are obviously at Engineers Australia encouraging employers, companies to attract or have a diverse engineering workforce. So it is also our part to educate companies, employers on the opportunities they have to sponsor international graduates. We also, on behalf of the Department of Home Affairs, we assess migration skills. So we can also, for those students who may have qualifications from overseas, we assess those. but the question is, I think, with those additional hurdles, international graduates need that network. Target also maybe smaller companies rather than the larger ones. They will also more often favor international candidates. It is difficult, but it's a question of also resilience. I have many good stories. Friends who are actually not engineers who have marketing and communications qualifications, and those aren't skills that are particularly lacking in Australia. And yet, with a lot of hard work and persistence, they find those sponsorship opportunities. So we are actively also talking to government, wanting to increase the opportunities to sponsor international candidates. So I don't have the actual solution to that apart from really showing your resilience, never giving up. And I could give you countless good stories, and I would be happy to introduce any of those students to those and who've been through in those situations, and who can give their advice.
Xavier,
If I can,
yeah, go Nicole.
sorry, I was just going to add on to what Xavier said. I think there's a tendency within graduates or within graduating students to go for the big companies. And yes, there's definitely opportunities that big companies can provide. But for myself, I started at a smaller company, and it was so valuable to have a different experience, to have a smaller company experience. And as engineers, we have a skill set that's so highly valued in so many different areas, and it would be remiss to just focus on the big companies. I say that working at a big company now, but having been at a different company, there are so many opportunities. I had graduate friends in my graduating class that went to Vic Roads, they went to North East Link, they went to Metro, they went to smaller residential construction firms, they went to your developers, your Lendlease, but there's so many different options. I had some that went to Deloitte and went in a completely different direction, but using their engineering degree in different ways. So I'd really encourage all students to, I guess, expand your horizons, and you can make the most out of every opportunity. And it's not just the big companies that can provide you life-changing experiences. So really explore what is possible.
Thank you. Now, I'm mindful of the time, and I've got just a couple more things to close off. Thank you, Nicole, by the way. Xavier, one small way for students to get involved is through Engineers Australia. Can you please just take us through briefly how they can get into the Engineers Australia world?
Well, how they can get into the world is quite simple, and I can share those links to all students who want to reach out to me. All of the students at Victoria University are eligible for a free student membership because they're studying an accredited degree. All the bachelors of engineering that you had mentioned earlier. Just to touch a word on some of the resources that the students have access to, obviously all the webinars, all the networking opportunities that we have, albeit online at the moment, we will soon be in person. So really fantastic opportunities to build those networks. I really wanted to mention that we have just recently developed a virtual engineering work experience, so that you can find on the Young Engineers Australia website. These are actual modules that were developed by Engineers Australia employers and educators. And they're modules that take about from 2 to 5 hours to complete in 8 fields of engineering, so civil, electrical, mechanical, that you deliver. We have those modules, and you can start building skills like cost estimations, client communications, all sorts of skills. And I think that's a way of proving, in the current situation, we're developing virtual engineering work experience. I could go on and on. We have our own Netflix, practically EA on demand, where you can review conferences, webinars, review them for free. Multiple platforms, forums of discussion, mentor opportunities. There's even though we have a librarian who's available to give you access to statistics, technical journals, conference proceedings. There's really just a wealth of resources there, all for free for our students, because we want them to have a good experience and hopefully be engaged future graduate members and experienced members like we have today, Amy, Nicole, Oscar, Figrette. That's in a nutshell, but I could actually do a whole presentation, an hour presentation on all we have available. So just encourage students to sign up. It's free, just go onto our website.
Thank you, Xavier. That's good. Now, I got to that. Now for the other four panelists, Xavier, you've given your insights. In a closing, I want each of you to give us a brief tip, a brief takeaway that students can take from this discussion. Okay, it's brief, nearly one sentence, one line. Oscar.
Yeah, I'd focus on those soft skills and do take the opportunities when they come up. Yeah, be open to them. Yeah.
Awesome. Nicole?
I think it's just not being afraid to try different things. There's so many opportunities that are open to us as engineers, and just jump in, give them a try, and you never know what could happen.
Don't be afraid. Great. Amy?
Throw away your career plan, number one, and really focus on your technical experience for the first 4 or 5 years, because it's really hard to get that opportunity back. And just say, this is point one, is focus on what you want to do next and use that to build your skill set in your current role. So focus, be present in what you're doing and focus on what you want to do next. And then if you do that, you do one step and then one step and then one step, and before you know it, you're somewhere where you had no idea you'd be, and that's your new career plan.
Awesome. And last but not least, Figrette?
Yeah, well, I'd say build a network. Start early on, reach out to people, attend as many industry events as you can, and start, keeping notes of the people that you've met and the reasons you've met them and the importance of meeting those people, and build that network, because it'll come in handy in the future.
Awesome. I don't even have to sum this up. You've all summed it up for me. You've done my concluding results. See, I'm learning. We're just about to reach 2 o'clock. Everybody, on everybody's behalf, I'd like to thank all the panelists for their time today. It's awesome. 1 hour is obviously not enough. But I think there's so much that we can take away from today, and we've discussed it. So Amy, Nicole, Oscar, Figrette, Xavier, thank you so much. All right, so the clap comes from me, but the clap's from everybody. All right.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
No, thank you all. And it looks, I think all I have to do is say there's a 10-minute break for the students online. That's it. See you in 10 minutes.
Thank you, everyone.
Forgive me, I'm still learning technology. But that was a good practice. Firstly, welcome to the second panel session titled How to Navigate Disruption to Recruitment in a New COVID World. This is extremely relevant to where we are at the moment, and we've got the best people in the industry here as our panel members to answer some important questions. But before we get on to that, the most exciting part of this session, the panel session, I'd firstly like to introduce myself and give you a bit of housekeeping rules, etc. My name is Rudy Van Steyden. I've got the best job in the world. I'm a senior lecturer in civil engineering at Victoria University. I'm every day grateful to my boss, Professor Sam Pragamini. His personal, professional leadership is incredible. If you were here at the start of the sessions, we mentioned about some of our student successes, our rankings. it's because of him. He's the man in the background making all of that possible. Sorry, I'm not just saying that so I can get a promotion. It's the truth. Secondly, I'd like to give a huge thank you to our panel members. They're volunteering their time today, specifically to answer your questions and to help you to prepare for recruitment in this new world that we're in at the moment. And I'd also like to thank you, all of the attendees to this webinar who are listening in and asking questions. On that note, if you go to the bottom right of your screen, for those that are listening in on this webinar, you've got the option to pose questions. So please write as many questions as you can in there. I will try to ask the panel members as your question appears, or else we will record your question and come back to you after the session. Okay, I'll hand it out now over to each panel member to introduce themselves. But before I do that, I'll start off with the first panel member, Kelly Power. She's a senior recruiter at KBR, Victoria's water and transport infrastructure projects. So I'll pass it over to you, Kelly, to introduce yourself, please.
Thank you, Rudy. Yes, so I guess just a little bit about my background. I have probably about 10 years experience as a recruiter now, working within the mining, construction, and most recently and mainly within the engineering sector. But I also actually spent a few years working with Engineers Australia. I was a client manager there, so my role was to support engineering organisations and leaders build the capability of their teams. So I would help link them to accreditation, career services, connecting students from university to employers, also support training and development initiatives as well. So all up, I've probably worked with over 200 engineering decision makers, and that's really helped me understand what they're looking for when it comes to hiring potential employees and what can help make you stand out. So looking forward to contribute that knowledge today. Currently working at KBR in the recruitment team here. I support the Victorian business unit, but nationally in Australia, we are delivering major transport infrastructure projects. We also work a lot within the water and defence sectors as well. So we're looking for the best and brightest across most disciplines, so civil, structural, rail, environment and water. So feel free to connect and check us out and learn a little bit more about KBR. Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. And just to let everybody know, we're recording this webinar. The information here is going to be very valuable. I'd like to now pass you over to Amy Mcnulty, a recruitment consultant with Hayes Recruitment, specialising in defence private industry. Sorry, you're mute. I think you might be muted, Amy.
There's always one. Hi, everyone. So I'm Amy Mcnulty. I specialise in defence industry across Melbourne. I am part of a national defence team as well. So we cover, everywhere across Australia. I'm super excited to be here today. Firstly, to connect with you all. We'll all connect on LinkedIn. To connect with today's brightest young talent. Defence industry as a whole, super busy and in-demand industry. It is a very difficult industry in terms of a lot of prerequisites required, but it's from an engineering perspective, it's very much in demand and it's only going to grow. You've probably seen it on the news. That's a little bit about me, and like I said, super excited to be here.
Thank you very much, Amy. I'll now move, I'm going in order of the presentation slide. Connor Williams, please. Connor, you're a senior recruiter consultant with Hayes Recruitment, specialising in recruiting experts in the energy and renewable industry in Victoria. Please tell us a bit about yourself.
Thanks for that, Rudy. Similar to Amy, we're actually colleagues, work in the Melbourne office here for Hayes Recruitment when we are in the office. But I specialize in the energy industry, so cover any sort of power generation, whether it's traditional coal fire or renewable energy development, and sort of the operations and maintenance of the transmission and distribution of energy across Victoria. So I deal with a lot of engineers on a day-to-day basis on many different disciplines, whether it's civil, structural, mechanical, but mainly electrical disciplines. So I work quite closely with a lot of the electric utilities, engineering consultancies, and various contractors across the Victoria market. And similar to Amy, I specialize just in Victoria, but I've got about 3 or 4 colleagues who do the exact same thing as me in energy in all the states, major cities across Australia. And yeah, very excited to be here as well. Main being I guess I'm very passionate about the energy renewables industry. It's quite an exciting industry here in Australia. Still quite young, I believe, in the grand scheme of things compared to, I guess, where renewables is at over in places like Europe and North America. But that just means that there's a lot of growth. Hence that it's a very short market, as well as many people out there have the required experience for a lot of the companies I work with. So hopefully I can sort of spark some interest in some of the young graduates here to maybe go towards that kind of a industry or something like that. But yeah, no, it's a very exciting industry, and looking forward to connecting to you all.
Thank you, Connor. That's amazing. I'd like to now pass you over to Joseph Corenza, member of Australasian board at Arup, and he has more than 20 years experience in designing and delivering large, complex, multidisciplinary projects. Joseph, please tell us about yourself.
Thanks, Rudy, and hi everyone. Great to be here actually, and I'm really pleased to be part of a panel with such diverse skills as well. A fantastic opportunity to have a really good exchange. As Rudy said, I'm actually a structural engineer by training. I'm a building designer as such, and have been in the industry actually now for about 25 years. It's a long time. But I've held different roles throughout my career. I think the key has been the delivery of very significant large projects that are really city shaping in many ways. So I guess I bring that type of experience to the discussion as to how we deliver on these sorts of projects, whether they are infrastructure, buildings, precincts, urban-based context type developments that are really complex but very exciting. And they are exciting because they become parts of our cities that will be there for a long time. So they leave a legacy, and the legacy that we leave needs to be super positive. And so we need to make sure that what we're designing today is right for the next 100 years. My role at Arup is, as noted, I'm a member of the Australasian board, but I also lead up Arup University, which is a part of the research, development, innovation part of Arup, and that is very important in terms of development of our graduates and how they run through Arup throughout their career in terms of their learning, training, and exposure to innovation and research in particular.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. Thank you all for your introduction. It's so good to see that you've got experience in Kelly focusing more on civil, Amy, all of the disciplines that cover our degrees, so mechanical, electrical, civil, architectural. Connor, in more electrical, but I suppose maybe some mechanical engineering could be in there as well. And Joseph, again, all of our engineering disciplines, because our students that are listening to this webinar at the moment are within those 4 degrees of mechanical, electrical, civil, and architectural engineering. Okay, we'll move on now to the best part of the webinar. Those are the questions. These questions will just be posed to the panel, and please anybody can answer at the beginning, could start off the discussion. So first question, how do you stay connected with your industry and your profession? So industry meaning manufacturing or constructing, and profession, electrical, architectural, engineering.
Hi, I'll go, Rudy.
Thank you.
I mean, in general, in terms of the industry and the profession, I can speak a little bit more broadly, but I think technology has really empowered us to be able to connect with a variety of people right from home. So I think just really embracing that. I know a lot of people would have, but really embracing technology and all of the initiatives available to students and graduates like Engineers Australia. I think it's really important to be involved in as many forums and committees. I know EA and other professional associations have things like coffee catch-ups and mentoring programs, any training courses. A lot of them are very interactive and allow you to engage and connect with people from a variety of industries and across the engineering professions. So just really getting involved in any programs or forums like this one that you can, and just not being afraid to put yourself out there and connect and be engaged on platforms like LinkedIn. Like I said, using technology right now is really important. I think it's really enabled us to probably reach a larger network as well.
Yeah, I've never used LinkedIn so much than in the last 18 months.
Rudy, I might just add to that. I absolutely agree with Cully. I think it's very, very important, particularly now, to be engaged across so many platforms. And that is the fantastic opportunity that exists now, which is very different to 10, 15 years ago. And that is the number of platforms that you are able to engage with and stay connected with, understand what the industry is thinking, where the challenges are, what your networks might look like going forward. The other thing I would add is, particularly as you start as a young graduate, many companies across the industry do run these sorts of young professional groups within their own organisation, and the various organisations link up and actually connect those groups to start that networking and that opportunity to build your own personal network with peers at other companies that might be doing similar things and might be having similar issues. Similar challenges and opportunities are shared through those links. So it's a great time actually in terms of being able to use these platforms to your advantage.
Joseph, I want to echo what you said. We've got a Victorian Division of Engineers Australia club at VU, and everybody that's a member of that club comes back and their network has expanded, both with their colleagues, with the lecturers at university and outside industry.
I'd say as well, in terms of attending these industry events, I think as well, these are things you can even put on your resume that you've attended. And I think it just really demonstrates that, you hold a degree, but you also have a real passion for what you do. And just going that extra mile actually does set you apart significantly from a lot of employers.
Yeah, totally agree with.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rudy, to cut you off.
No, please.
Yeah, totally agree with Amy there. I was going to touch on a bit later on, but I'll bring it up now. Connecting with your network, I guess, not only sort of expands that, I guess lack of a better word, network, but it just shows that passion, like Amy said, and that's a big thing I find employers are looking for is that the passion for your industry and I guess hungry for your next career goal, not only just your technical qualifications or skills and things like that. So being active on LinkedIn, not just with connecting with your network, but also maybe even doing a bit of research and starting your own blog or making posts and comments on topical articles within the industry, I find is very important.
While I've got you, I've got a question in the chat area. What are the specific job roles and titles in the power systems industry?
Yep, really good question. I would say within power systems in particular, there's probably two main ones that are I guess, very in high demand. So that would be, I guess, power systems engineers would be the main one, I'd say. So that has a lot to do with grid connection studies. So right now there's a lot of difficulty with connecting power generation assets to the Australian network. And a lot of the actual electric utilities or renewable developers or engineering consultancies are looking for candidates with that skill set who can do grid connection studies. So people who are sort of fluent in using softwares like PFSCAD and PSSE and things like that. That's definitely one. And another big one as well, what I'd say would be like primary design engineers. So people who are experienced in designing more of the high voltage aspects of substations. which comes into a lot of the fact of more grid connections projects, really, because that's a big push right now, is connecting a lot of these newer renewable energy assets like solar farms, wind farms. In order to do that, you've got to have electrical substations. In order to build and design those, you've got to have primary design engineers and grid connection engineers. So I say those are the main two ones within the power systems areas for sure.
Okay, you've answered it very well and above my expertise, that's for sure. I've got another question, and this is linked to the current question that we're discussing, but also moving on to our next question. It's from Koshika. The question is, sorry, I've just lost it. How to get more opportunities in the job market, and how to get to how to become ready for securing those job opportunities. I've reworded it slightly. So how to get more opportunities in the job market. I think this question that we've just spoken about, technology, putting yourself out there, going the extra mile. I think that will be a good starting point. And would you like to add anything else?
That's such a good question, and you know, I think it's very subjective, and I would always say, you know, the biggest thing is if you've got a passion or you're applying for a role, you know, do as much research as you can. And you know, it's, you know, if you're looking for a new position, and it might be that there's several different roles, but to take that bit of extra time and really tailor, you know, a resume, or you know, if there's a particular role that you really want to, you know, achieve, or you want to go for, whether that's on a graduate scheme, doing the little extra things to set you apart. So like for me, within the defence industry, you know, if it's a graduate who is an electrical engineer, for example, and they want to go for a role as a systems engineer within an electrical engineering context, you know, you can do additional courses. So I'm not sure if it's Victoria University that does the introduction to systems engineering, but these additional things like that to really set yourself apart is really significant. And having that own, I guess, soft skills are important, but I find from an employer's perspective, it's having that point of difference, you know, showing that motivation. We all can't do everything in our, you know, someone who can have 10 years experience in a new job, you know, they're not going to know everything when they move to a new job. So it's really about demonstrating that, you know, you've got that willingness to learn. And I think sometimes having those additional qualifications or attending, you know, an event really demonstrates your willingness to do that.
I think that answers that question completely. I'll move on to the next question. I think this question kind of lies true to myself. I remember being at university and going to events and really like enjoying the presentation, the talk, but then as soon as they announced that there's a coffee 10 minutes, thinking I have to stand up and speak to somebody. That was so nerve-wracking. So my next question is, how does networking connect with career success and development?
Happy to touch on that one quickly, Rudy. So I think, yeah, it directly connects to a lot of the companies I recruit for and work on behalf of. Is a lot of the most highly regarded candidates are referrals generally, and that doesn't necessarily that they have known these candidates for 10, 15 years and have are pretty much family with them. It can be as simple as they cut up for a coffee once. Or they've known them from a couple networking events. They met up with them and they know who they are essentially. It's just that pretty much that first impression that you've made. So if you've got a massive network of tens and hundreds of first impressions, you're just giving yourself that better chance of leading to an interview based off of a referral rather than an application.
Yeah, I agree with that, Connor. I'd like to add also, I think in terms of, you know, how it connects with your career success and development, very important, you know, for getting positions and applying for roles. It's not what you know, it's who you know most of the time. But it helps you get educated and really understand more about organizations and different industries and sectors and potential career paths that you might not have known about before. So having conversations with people and just learning, I think, is really important. And it's important to remember that they're just people as well. I think no one really finds networking a really comfortable activity, but just be authentic, be yourself, and it allows people to get to know you and not just a piece of paper, you know, your resume. It's it helps you stand out. So I really encourage it.
Can I just add something to that very quickly? And I agree with everything that's been said thus far. Don't see networking as a means to an end. See it as an opportunity to get to know people. See it as an opportunity to exchange ideas, to just have a genuine chat about what's happening in people's lives. And, you know, and it turns to work, sure, and it turns to industry, absolutely. But, you know, if you think about it that way, it's not so daunting. I think if you think about it in terms of, goodness me, I've got to create a network of 150 people in the next 3 events or something, it just becomes, you know, it shouldn't be that. It actually, you know, most people are there because they do want to, you know, get to know other people and share views and see what's happening across different parts of the industry and look for opportunities to come together as, you know, common-minded people. And that's a good thing. You know.
Joseph, I really liked when you said to start off maybe on a social aspect and find out, just talk to them as a person instead of going straight to, I want a job. Like before you met your partner, you didn't straight away ask her, would you marry me? You first maybe dated. I've got a question in the chat area from Jaskaran Deep. Is it important to build a report first while connecting with people online, or straight ask them about internship work experience? I think we've just answered that question. I've got another question from Smith. It's really tough to receive rejections for jobs. Any advice for interview skills or areas to focus on for improvement?
You know what, like the rejection, you've got to remember everybody receives that. And I think that, you know, statistically, I don't know what the statistics are, but I think it's, you know, you can apply for 10 jobs and you'll get a response from 1. It might even be more than that. You know, everyone's been in that position, and you've got to always remember it's nothing personal with that. You know, it is tough. You've got to just be persistent and realize, you know, you will get that opportunity. In terms of, you know, from an interview perspective, again, just be yourself. You want to show that credibility as well. You want to, you know, being a graduate, sometimes you haven't got any work experience at all, but you've got the, you know, you've got the drive, you're clearly intelligent because you've got your university degree in the specific area. And, you know, just demonstrate that willingness and capability to learn. But even, you know, the smaller subjects that you might have studied, if that's relevant to the job, you know, talk about that. Say, you know, you might not have all the answers, but you certainly might have an understanding of what something is and how it works.
So that's a very good point. I think this question plus your response, Amy, might lead me to I'll just go to our final question on our list, and then I'll come back to the other questions. Any suggestions for interview skills and how to stand out in a competitive industry?
I can give you a couple just very quickly, and we've already touched on it. You know, being passionate is really important. You know, being passionate for what you're doing, why you're there, and having done a bit of research about the company that you might be willing, you know, thinking about joining. Why are you doing that? Is it just a job, or is it actually because you're interested in something that company is doing with its strategy or the impact it might be having in some way? You know, do a little bit of research and show that you are genuinely passionate. And I think the other thing is, you know, and we said be yourself, absolutely, but, you know, at Arup we get 1,200 graduate interview applications every year, and, you know, and like many companies, you cannot filter on the basis of just results. You start to then look for what makes this particular candidate special, interesting, different. So passion's important. The other thing is have a breadth of understanding about what are the key issues in industry. What's going on at the moment? You know, what are your views? Have a voice. it's not about being right or wrong. It's about actually showing interest in providing commentary or having an opinion or having thought about, you know, what's the future of digital in our industry? How does sustainable development actually look? Even if you might be an electrical engineer, what does that mean to you in terms of, you know, what the future of sustainability does to your discipline? Again, you don't have to be, you know, trying to solve the world's problems, but you do need to at least show some understanding of those sorts of challenges and say, you know what, I've got an opinion on that, or I want to learn more about it, or whatever it might be.
Very good point. Passion, be yourself, which Amy said, and research about the company. Any other points for that, for the interview?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I'd probably just like to touch a little bit more on, I guess, the softer skills that really do make you stand out. Like Joseph said, and Amy touched on as well. Obviously, your degree is extremely important. It is the foundation. It's, you know, that technical foundation is the core of your career, but it is just the start of your career. You still continue to learn after you graduate. You know, you're still, you know, 3 or 4, 5 years, you're always learning as an engineer. So I just think the soft skills that make you stand out as a graduate, amongst others, because we're the same, we get a very high volume of applicants each year, so it's definitely not personal. Rejection, it does happen to everyone, it is very common, but you know, you might fit into one organization and you might not align with another, so it's definitely not a personal thing. So be educated on terms of what culture that organization has and what are their values and what are the purpose, and really try and understand. I think be open at the same time, but be targeted in terms of the organizations that you're applying for, and really go in knowing, you know, knowing something about them and why you've applied for that company.
I wish I was told this when I graduated. This is very valuable information. And just one thing as well for our audience, we've got BU Employed that offer you the opportunity to do mock interviews before you actually do your proper interview. And I think that's such a good opportunity. I might move on to the next question. In the light of the last 18 months, can you talk on how to get job ready in a virtual world? What have you seen?
I think a big thing as well, I mean, I'm going to talk about the energy industry, but I think it's applicable to multiple different industries really, is just staying up to date with, I guess, certain projects, where they're at, what the future holds, what types of projects in the energy industry. A lot of the times you can find out what companies are doing bids or tenders for certain projects, or sort of the early stage and sort of like feasibility of certain solar and wind farms. But similar across other projects, other construction industries as well. Just staying up to date with those kind of projects, and you can kind of relate it to where the skills might be in demand as well, and you can kind of touch up on certain courses like Amy was touching on before, just short courses, things like that, to stay up to date, stay relevant within the industry, around your knowledge, because things do change quite quickly within sort of 6 to 12 months time. The industry, sort of the demand can change for a certain skill set. So it's just being up to date, really knowing the industry, kind of like, so I guess some of the answers we've already had, but that's definitely one of the key things I would say.
Thank you, Connor. In terms of staying up to, I liked when you said to stay up to speed with what's going on in regards to the demand for skills. Do you see industry requiring different skills because of you might be required to work online? Do you see them looking for anything else, like your ability to use WebEx or Zoom?
I think in terms of like hard skills, yeah, potentially a few things. I guess, yes, I guess IT things like Microsoft Teams or Zoom and stuff like that. But I think probably the change is more within the soft skills, what Kelly was talking about before. Is probably more companies are looking for that now, because there's a bigger push around team culture and collaborating with each other because it is more difficult to do virtually. So having a new member of the team that brings in sort of a very good positive energy or is really good at collaborating would be hired a lot more than someone that might just tick all the boxes with the hard skill but can't bring those attributes to the team. And also as well, because of the virtual world, there has been an increase in movement into more senior candidates within the business as well. So companies, when bringing in more junior or graduate candidates, they are looking for people that are looking for like more career development and long-term growth. So looking for people that would fit within the team well, not just within the short term, but in the long term, because there is a lot of movement within candidates around more the senior level, looking for new opportunities. So yeah, I'd say the change is more within the soft skills, but hard skills, yeah, I guess just being up to date as much as you can with all the virtual platforms or things like LinkedIn and stuff like that has definitely changed in the last 18 months, I would say.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that too. Just basic things now, just verbal and written skills. It's common to find that as not a priority, sorry, amongst applicants at the moment. And yeah, I think just getting those basics right, you know, good written verbal communication when you aren't in a when you're in a virtual environment is extremely important. So yeah, just getting the basics right, I think.
That's amazing. Thank you. One thing I would like to add to this as well, it's so much more convenient in a way to attend webinars like this one at the moment and to upskill as well. I've got a question, a very good question from the audience. I'll just read it. What is the prospect of job portability across different disciplines within engineering works? Perhaps beyond engineering, such as construction management.
I might jump in on that one, Rudy. It's huge potential. And actually engineering is a foundation skill that draws you out into different parts of the industry and different types of roles, career paths is significant. What I would say though is particularly once you start working, spend the time to get that foundation right. So don't jump too quickly from one thing to another. Build a really strong foundation in your discipline, and then you've always got that to fall back on. But that will give you an incredible sort of strength to springboard off into potentially other opportunities that present themselves, other types of careers. But it is important that, you know, I'm of the belief that having a foundation which is, you know, built on, you know, your knowledge, your skills that you've developed, your technical understanding, and the application of that is really important in engineering. You know, so have the opportunity to have delivered half a dozen projects or seen something through, so that you know you've got that full range of skills and experience that you can draw upon in future careers or future roles.
Thank you, Joseph. Kelly, Amy, or Connor, have you seen people changing careers in that regard, having the engineering foundation and then going for construction management or?
Yeah, 100% couldn't agree more. I guess in terms of my industry, the energy industry, I don't only just recruit, I guess what they would call it, an engineer's engineer, someone who just does the technical hands-on studies and stuff like that. I also recruit project managers, construction managers, commercial managers, a lot of people that maybe look to more of either the commercial side of companies or the more construction side of things, and every single one, I would say 95% of the time, they come from a technical engineering background, whether it's electrical engineer or mechanical or civil. Exactly what Joseph said earlier is having that good foundation, that good base, and then you can pretty much pick and choose of where you want to go. Some people might choose to stay within a technical discipline and become a senior or principal engineer one day, or some prefer the more other people management or project management side of things, and look to develop the skills elsewhere, more of a project side, and maybe manage a team of technical engineers to do the design study. So it's definitely, opportunities are endless, really. There's tons of different paths you can take from I guess starting with that base of a good engineering degree.
I absolutely agree. And what I would say is from a company perspective, so a lot of my clients will say, you know, if they're looking for a project manager, they actually do want someone who could do the job themselves. So they might not be. So if they can actually understand what, you know, the individuals who they might be managing can do, it's an absolute really, really significant advantage, even from in terms of people management. If you're managing people, they want to be able to know that you can do that job as well, or you have done that job before as an engineer. So yeah, absolutely huge bonus.
Before we move on to the next question, I've got a few more questions. I like this question from the audience. How can I catch up for a coffee with a recruiter or employer? So how can they buy you a coffee or their future employer?
Depends where you are at the moment. If we're in Melbourne or Sydney, I don't think anything.
Yeah, within the 10K radius.
We'll have to switch to virtual coffee or something.
No, I'd say, I guess to answer that one is, I guess as a recruiter, we try and obviously help as many candidates as we can, but not all the time. Maybe your skill set experience is very good, but not maybe completely relevant to some of the clients we do work with. Same with employers, maybe might not be the best fit for the immediate position. But I guess in terms of catch up with a coffee and catch up with them is similar to what you also said earlier, is maybe not have the ends, the means to an end. Don't see it as a means to an end. Just to maybe sort of catch up as like as an education piece for yourself, so try and pick their brain about the industry, or because as a recruiter, I'm always happy to sort of give advice around that or talk about the industry. A lot of people are happy to talk about themselves as well, so you can catch up with an employer or recruiter to see if they can talk about the industry for you, rather than just catching up with them because you want to get a job. So a lot of times, obviously, yeah, I'll try and catch up with people for coffee because I do have a job for them. But that's not always the case, and I'm assuming that's probably where the question leads to as well. So yeah, see if you can sort of pick their brains about something else, or use it as more as an educational piece, really, to catch up with someone.
Definitely. I think it's important to be conscious of people's time. I think we would all love to help as many people as we can, but yeah, I think it's not always possible, unfortunately. So that networking piece that we spoke about at the start is extremely important. Being involved in committees, events, mentoring programs are fantastic. And yeah, perfectly said, Connor, in terms of don't just reach out just to get a job, reach out to learn and connect and engage with the industry.
Thank you. Next question. What are the benefits of using LinkedIn or any other digital platform, and how can these platforms be used to leverage opportunities? Connor, I like what you said before on LinkedIn, to maybe follow a certain company or to like certain news posts about developments in industry. Are there any other digital platforms that we need to know about, and how can we use them to leverage opportunities? Any ideas?
I would say, obviously, just to mention about LinkedIn as well, I would, as a recruiter, LinkedIn it's amazing because it's your personal brand as well. So who you follow, people can see who you comment on, and really sort of establishing your own personal brand. But one of the biggest things is, you know, if employers are looking for a specific individual for a job, have as much detail as you can on your LinkedIn page, because as what we do as recruiters, we will type in, you know, 5 or 6 keywords on the LinkedIn entire search, and everyone's profile will come up who's got those keyword searches in. So that might be, you know, you might have worked with Linux, for example. You might not have got experience with that, but you've learned about it at university. Little things like that will actually get you on a recruiter's radar. So even, you know, talking about your degree, list the specific subjects, the softwares, you know, anything that you've worked on, be as specific as you can.
So I'm learning. I'm learning. This is fantastic.
Yeah, and just to touch on that as well, I guess in terms of digital platforms, LinkedIn is definitely the giant right now and the main sort of almost have a monopoly, I guess, in terms of professional profiles. But Seek's a big one as well, because you can actually create a profile on Seek, and recruiters and anyone who has I guess a Seek license can, similar to LinkedIn, can do various searches and come across your profile. So same sort of thing. It's one thing that people probably don't keep up to date as often. You might only do it when you're looking for a job. But if you can keep an up-to-date Seek profile, same as your LinkedIn profile, you maybe come up more in more relevant searches for recruiters or employers as well.
Fantastic. Got a question in the chat area. I guess related to this. Is there anything that you look for specifically in resumes and interviews? I guess it will be those keywords of software skills or technical skills. But is there anything else that you're looking for in a resume and an interview? Sort of anything that can make somebody stand out. I think we've covered some of this quite a bit. Sort of passion, your soft skills, knowledge of the job, volunteering, that you've completed volunteering. What about
Hold on. I'm sorry, Amy, is that you? Go ahead, Amy.
No, oh, thank you. No, it's, you know, I always look for hobbies in on a resume as well, and it doesn't actually seem like a lot, but it actually can be common ground. Like for me, for example, I play golf. If I see golf on someone's resume, it straight away I think that's, that's common ground that I can, talk to somebody about to really build that rapport with as well. So just the little things like that. But again, it is difficult to reflect, your personality on a piece of paper. But certain things that might make you unique, any of the volunteer projects you've done, any of the university research projects that you've done as well, go into as much detail as possible if you haven't worked since after graduating just yet, so you feel as though you haven't got employment experience, but a university research project certainly is as well.
Fantastic. I think we've answered that question. I'll move on to our final question. What are the impacts of COVID on early career graduates?
It's a very interesting question. I think we all go to speak, but we all don't know when who's going to answer. I think it's interesting because there's pros and cons to it, because of COVID, it's a very, very skill short market. There's not many people, there's not a lot of people, traveling here or moving here because of the border restrictions. So there's actually less people who can do the required jobs, particularly within engineering. So in one respect, you're actually at an advantage. And I've noticed an actual trend with a lot of my employers actually who are willing to look at people who perhaps haven't got as much experience. Someone might hit 70%, but if they've got the soft skills and they can demonstrate that ability and motivation to learn, much more likely to get the position, as opposed to someone who might hit 100% of the criteria as well.
Hopefully the border restrictions continue. No.
I agree with Amy, actually. I think the opportunities are quite significant at the moment. Having said that, once you do get a job, there are significant challenges with working from home and not being connected to your team, not having effective mentorship, a senior person guiding your career and your learning and your development. So one of the things to be mindful of is, where are you going that's going to allow that to happen? Make sure that those organisations have a structured form of ensuring that their graduates are, are catered for appropriately in this virtual environment. It is really important. You can find yourself sort of left a little bit in the hole, and that's not good for anyone. So do a little bit of research there. Actually have, we talked about what do you bring to an interview. Have the courage to ask tough questions as well. You're able to interrogate who's going to be employing you, and you know, ask those things that are important to you as well. I think actually I like to see that initiative when, you know, youngsters are coming along and saying, well, hang on, how about this and how about that, and what's your view on this? And yeah, it's fantastic. That's exactly what we want. Don't forget, you guys on this call are the leaders of this industry in the future, right? And so that's what we're looking for now. We're looking for who is going to be there that will take this industry forward, and you know, and so have an opinion, you know, and have the courage to ask those tough questions. It's good.
Thank you, Joseph, for the encouragement. I'm always scared to ask questions at an interview, especially tough ones. So that concludes our the questions from the panel. Before I let the panel go, if I could please ask each panel member, I'll go in the same sequence as what we started, just to give one takeaway message in terms of recruitment, securing your first job, and especially in this COVID world that we're in at the moment. I'll start with Kelly. Thank you.
Yeah, great. I've got a couple of points. Just wanting to touch on work experience. I know it's extremely valuable and it is hard to get experience without experience, but I've seen some really standout candidates at that student and graduate level that have just any work experience. What we really want to see, and when we talk about soft skills, we want to see how well you engage with people of all levels, all backgrounds, how well you can communicate, how you show up to work, how you present yourself at work. So, you know, ideally, if you can get a role or a job that is relevant to the engineering sector that you want to be joining, that's fantastic, whether it's on a construction site or as in an office. That's extremely important. So don't ever disregard just any sort of work experience. I like to see that on people's resumes, particularly if it's local and they've got a good understanding of the working life, I guess. So I always encourage any experience is good experience. And my other point that I want to leave with you is be open. Educate yourself, have an idea, you know, about what you want to do, but be open to saying yes to any opportunities, because it will just lead you on an amazing pathway. So your idea of what the world of work looks like and what engineering looks like right now probably will be very different once you actually get out into the workplace. It's a huge transition, so just be open, learn from others, and don't pinhole yourself into one specific discipline or one type of job.
Thank you, Kelly. And just want to pick on when you said work experience. In the previous panel session, Xavier mentioned that Engineers Australia now offer virtual work experience. So,
yeah.
Amy, if I pass it to you.
Yeah, I would, you know, I would say just be persistent. And, you know, it is very, very difficult when you graduate from university. You feel like you are applying, you know, for loads and loads of jobs and you're not getting anywhere, and you will find something. And whatever you do end up securing, it might be that you stay there for the next 10 years. It might be that you find something else after 6 months. Just keep that resilience, and you know, you will get there. And I think secondly as well, like look out, and this is particular, and I know other industries actually will do, you know, different graduate schemes. They are super competitive, but apply for as many as you can. You know, from a defence perspective, there's a lot of really large businesses that offer graduate programs, but you also have a lot of smaller companies doing that as well. So like the SMEs, consultancies, because, you know, everybody needs very similar skill sets. Everyone needs engineers, whether that is electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, we all need them. So get in there as quick as you can, but apply for as many things as you can as well.
It's amazing. Thank you. I agree. We need engineers. Bonan, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll probably, I guess, back up to Amy's point and add another one as well. Is just being persistent with it. It is a very difficult market in general, especially for early graduates out there. But in terms of persistent as well, is obviously going to apply to obviously a lot of relevant positions, many positions as you can as well. But I always say applying for a job or finding a job is a full-time job in itself. So use it as a learning process as well. It may take a couple of weeks, it may take a few months, it may take 6 months even to find the right position. throughout that application process, you want to make sure that you're learning something as well, not only for your own personal development, but also it'll help with your recruitment process. So for those first 2, 10, 15 rejections you've had, don't just kind of take it personally. Use it as a way to maybe tailor your search somewhere else, or learn it as a way to, oh, I need this kind of skill set, so I'll take this short course. So definitely learn throughout the recruitment process, because it can be a long, drawn-out process at times, really.
Connor, that's a very good point. It's definitely a full-time job.
Yeah.
Joseph, please.
The beauty about going last is I can say I agree with everything that's just being said, because I do actually. All those points are absolutely right. So I'll try and pick up on a couple that haven't been spoken about. So willingness to learn. I know that sounds crazy because you're just doing, all this education, but the willingness to learn and showing that is really important actually, because when you start in industry, you're learning, and you're learning quick, and it is a different environment. So that's always important. The other thing is staying absolutely positive and being receptive to the broader pieces that I've talked about earlier is really important. And then finally, digital skills and skills around sustainability are hugely in demand. So you must make sure that you guys are all digital natives now, but you've got to be highlighting those skills as extraordinary, different, unique, and that is something that every employer is looking for at the moment. So make sure that it's not just your technical discipline. And the very last thing is make sure that you smash your degree. Make sure that you do the absolute best you can. Get the best results you can. It shows success in being able to deliver on a commitment that you've just made for 4 or 5 years at university. So, that is important. It is a big tick to be able to say, I've done really well, and I've organised myself and got myself, through this really tough course. That's it from me, Rudy.
I'd like to give you a virtual thank you. Clap my hands. Thank you, Joseph, Amy, Kelly, Connor. Very grateful for your time. If we had,
Thank you for having us.
I'd like to now move on to the conclusion of this webinar. So firstly, I'd like to thank Alicia Prince for starting off the webinar, introducing the panel members and also the 2 topics that was covered. Professor Sam Fragamini for talking about engineering at VU, and then moving on to the panel 1 session, early career advice. I think we had some really valuable discussion there, especially at the early, when you start your career. Moving on to panel 2, how to navigate disruption to recruitment in a new COVID world. Very good takeaway messages there. I'll just quickly go through them. I'll pick out some of the ones that stand out. Being able to communicate at all levels, so your colleagues plus senior management, demonstrating those skills. Saying yes to all of the opportunities that come your way. Even if you think this is not going to benefit me in my job, say yes to it and take it on board. Amy, you said to be persistent, even if you're not successful with the job application, be persistent. I think that's a really good point. And look at opportunities at both large and small companies. Connor, loved what you said. Finding a job is a full-time job. Don't think you can apply for the job from 5 to 6 p.m. after you've completed the job that you're doing, the work that you're doing at the moment, or your university. It takes a lot of dedication and effort to research the company, to ask the right questions. Joseph, thank you for mentioning that. And moving on, a willingness to learn. This will be probably one of the reasons that you'll get employed, is because you're willing to continuously learn. It's not about the grades that you've achieved, but it's about your willingness to put your hand up for everything and to learn new things. Stay positive, develop those digital skills. And Joseph, I'm going to repeat your words, smash your degree. Do the best that you can with it. And that concludes our webinar. Professor Sam Pergamini, I don't know if you would like to add anything. Thank you, everybody, and thank you very much to our panel members, the audience.